She was used to men falling to their knees before her, but this guard didn't even blink. Unshakable. Cold-blooded. Karen doesn't take no for an answer. She'll make him obey, but in just 1 minute everything will go off script, and she'll regret it. London was drowning in a sweltering haze. The heat warped the air, turning the city into a scorching stone furnace. Yet despite the suffocating weather, tourists crowded in front of Buckingham Palace, squinting against the sun and pressing warm water bottles against their sweat-slicked necks. The clicking of cameras, the hum of the crowd, tour guides shouting over one another, ice cream carts rolling lazily along, a typical day at the palace gates. Everyone here knew why they had come, to see the legendary royal guards, scarlet uniforms, towering bearskin hats, movements as precise as clockwork. They were a symbol of the British monarchy's unwavering presence. They didn't speak. They didn't smile. They didn't react, even to the most ridiculous antics from tourists. That's why the crowd respected them. But one woman didn't. She didn't admire their discipline. She didn't revere their tradition. She despised it. Meet Karen Bennett. Or rather, prepare to hate her with every fiber of your being. Karen stood dead center in the square, wearing an expression that suggested this wasn't a public space but her private palace. And everyone else? Mere background extras in the movie of her life. With pursed lips and an exaggerated eye roll, she tugged at the sleeve of her flawlessly tailored Chanel red pantsuit and lazily tapped a manicured nail against the screen of her brand-new iPhone. Balanced on heels, no less than 4 inches high, she looked like she had just stepped off a runway featuring a collection called Luxury for Those Who Despise Other People. Her oversized, designer sunglasses covered half her face, but even through the tinted lenses, the sheer disdain in her expression was crystal clear. Karen existed wherever power could be flaunted. In 5-star hotels, she berated staff for serving her coffee too hot. In designer boutiques, she demanded to speak to the manager if a cashier dared to make her wait. In Michelin-starred restaurants, she threw fits if the waiter didn't immediately know her favorite vintage champagne. And now, her next target was the royal guards. Ugh, who even came up with this ridiculous circus? She muttered, brushing off an imaginary speck of dust from her sleeve. You know what a real Karen does? She sticks her nose where it doesn't belong and starts a scene no one asked for. And then, her eyes landed on him. The royal guard. The perfect embodiment of discipline. Tall, focused, unshakable. He didn't flinch at the noise around him. He didn't blink. He didn't even glance in her direction. But he should have. Everyone should. And yet, this man didn't even acknowledge her presence. For Karen, that was unacceptable. She was used to men bowing before her, waiters bending to serve her coffee, drivers holding doors open with their heads slightly lowered, managers pleading with her not to file corporate complaints. But this man stood right in front of her, unmoving, unbothered, not even sparing her a glance. Irritation bubbled up inside her. "Who the hell do you think you are? Ignoring me?" She scoffed, pushing her sunglasses down the bridge of her nose. She stared hard at his face, hunting for even a flicker of recognition, a sign of respect, a sliver of acknowledgement. But nothing. The guard didn't even blink, as if she didn't exist. Karen's jaw clenched. She hated being ignored. She had to break him. And then, a thought struck her. What if I make him kneel? The idea seized her mind. No one had ever made a royal guard kneel, but she wasn't just anyone. She was Karen Bennett. The crowd didn't know it yet, but today would be a day for the history books. Karen was ready to take center stage. Karen never rushes. She knows that a true show doesn't begin with action. It begins with anticipation. What do ordinary people do? They simply watch, take photos, and move on. But Karen? Karen isn't ordinary. Her goal is to leave a mark, to be remembered, to make a scene, and most importantly, to make someone obey. And now, her next target stands right before her, the Royal Guard. Tall, mighty, unshakable, a trembling creature, or a man with power. Time to find out. Karen steps forward. Oh, she knows exactly what she's doing. She doesn't just charge at him like some foolish tourist. No, she builds tension. She tilts her head slightly, examining him like a luxury handbag in a designer boutique. Her eyes narrow critically. Then, a mocking scoff. The crowd notices. She has their attention now. Karen stops right in front of him, arms crossed over her chest, and only after a dramatic pause, she speaks. "Hey, you still alive in there?" Silence. Karen snaps her fingers in his face. Snap. Snap. Nothing. Not a twitch. Not a flicker of emotion. The crowd shifts. Whispers ripple through the air. Someone chuckles. Someone is already recording. Karen feels it. Oh, she feels it in her skin. The attention, the adrenaline, the power. She steps even closer. Now she's so near she can feel his body heat through the thick uniform, but the guard doesn't move, and that annoys her. Karen isn't used to being ignored. "Do you even know who I am?" Silence. Her lips press into a thin line. She leans in. So close, her lips are mere inches from his face. And then, she whispers, but just loud enough for the crowd to hear. "I've made men fall to their knees before me. Do you really think you'll be the exception?" Gasps. The crowd erupts. She has made a promise. Now, everyone is waiting for the next move. But nothing. The guard doesn't even blink. Absolute, unshaken, stillness. Karen's jaw tightens. This is infuriating. She is used to instant obedience. "Put down your weapon. Get on your knees. Admit that you're just a clown in a costume." Nothing. Perfect. Icy. Indifference. Karen blinks. She doesn't believe it. This man, he's actually ignoring her. The crowd realizes it too. Whispers turn into murmurs. Wait, does he seriously not see her? Karen feels something boil inside her. She is used to being the center of attention. She is used to people fearing her. She is used to her word being law. But this man stands before her, unmoving, unbothered, not even breathing differently. "You call yourself Royal Guard. Any housewife could break you." The crowd gasps. Someone snorts with laughter. Someone claps. But the guard, unmoved. Karen is furious, so furious she stops thinking. She just acts, does what no one expected. She raises her hand and shoves him. The crowd sucks in a breath. Someone covers their mouth in shock. Someone lets out a slow, drawn-out, "Ooh." Someone else, filming every second. The guard shifts. He doesn't fall, but he moved. Karen tastes victory. She landed the first strike, and she had no intention of stopping now. The crowd hadn't yet processed what had just happened. A second ago, everything was normal. Tourists taking pictures, someone eating ice cream, someone flipping through a London map. And then, this. Karen had shoved a royal guard. A royal guard. A man who doesn't move, who doesn't speak, who doesn't react. But he had. Just for a couple of inches, but he had. The crowd gasped. Somewhere in the back, a woman let out a shriek, as if she'd just seen a ghost. Cameras immediately locked onto Karen, recording every second. But to her, This wasn't a signal to stop. It was a signal to go further. She felt the power. A rush of adrenaline flared in her chest. She had made him react. This man wasn't a machine. He wasn't stone. He could move. And that meant he could fall. Karen stepped forward. The scent of her expensive perfume lingered in the air. Her eyes burned with anticipation. Come on, just admit it. Admit you're just an actor in a costume. She shoved him again. Harder. The guard staggered back slightly, but still he didn't fall. A victorious grin spread across her face. She wouldn't stop. She was used to breaking people. They could pretend to be walls, act invincible, but the moment you found their weak spot, they crumbled like a house of cards. She grabbed his shoulders. Her nails dug into the thick fabric of his uniform. She pressed down with all her strength, forcing his body lower, trying to make him kneel. The guard didn't budge. Karen clenched her teeth. On your knees, soldier boy. You're supposed to obey. Silence. The crowd froze. Some had already realized she had crossed a line. Some laughed. Some whispered. And some just kept filming, waiting for her to fail. And then something happened that no one expected. He moved, one step forward, then another, like it was the heaviest step in the world. The echo of his boots striking the stone pavement thundered like a storm. The crowd gasped. Royal guards don't move without cause. This wasn't supposed to happen. But he had moved. Karen froze. A creeping realization settled in her mind. Something was wrong. The guard lifted his head. His face remained unreadable. But now, he filled the entire space before her, like a shadow blotting out the sun. For the first time, Karen felt something foreign. Not irritation, not anger. Fear. The crowd held its breath. And then, he spoke. A voice like thunder ripped through the air. Stand down immediately. It was a sentence. A verdict. The sheer force of his voice made the air compress in Karen's lungs. The crowd flinched. People stumbled back. Someone covered their ears. Someone just froze in place. Karen blinked. Her fingers uncurled. She stumbled back, but she already knew. It was too late. The guard wasn't staying silent. The crowd didn't know what was coming next. But everyone felt one thing. The game was over. Silence. But not the usual silence that drapes over the grand walls of Buckingham Palace. This silence was different. Sinister. Heavy. Artificial. There was a threat lurking within it. The thunderous voice of the guard still echoed in Karen's ears, her chest tightening under an unfamiliar weight. She didn't know what to do, and neither did the crowd. Everyone was waiting. For something. And then, it happened. A deep, echoing sound of footsteps. Heavy, steady, unrushed. Karen froze. Slowly, she turned her head toward the palace gates. And then, she saw them, emerging from the massive iron gates like living red phantoms. 6 more guards, moving as one, perfectly synchronized. None of them looked at the crowd. All 6 pairs of eyes were locked onto her, onto Karen. The crowd began to panic. People exchanged uneasy glances. They took hesitant steps back. Just moments ago, they had been laughing, recording. Some had even cheered her on. Others had simply been waiting to see what would happen next. But now, everything had changed. These guards weren't indifferent. They weren't just part of the scenery. They were coming. A guttural noise escaped someone in the crowd. Half a gasp, half a whimper. Karen felt her breath hitch. She turned her head. The crowd still held their phones up, still recording, but their expressions had changed. The excitement was gone. The laughter had died. Now, their eyes held something else. Genuine. Primal. unease. They no longer saw her as a hero. Now, they saw a woman who had done something unimaginable. For the first time, she felt like the prey. Prey? No. She was never the prey. She was always in control. She was the one who dictated the rules. She crushed people with her mere presence. But now, she was trapped in something she could no longer control. Her own body betrayed her, a faint tremor running down her spine. No, she couldn't show fear. Karen forced out a hoarse laugh, raising her hands. Hey, it's just a joke. Her voice shook, and she heard it herself, but no one answered. The crowd didn't laugh. No one defended her. No one said she was just a tourist messing around. And then, the guard she had tried to force to his knees lifted his rifle. Slowly, deliberately. The barrel pointed directly at her. Karen stopped breathing. It was staring at her. Cold, black, lifeless. She forgot how to move. Her legs felt bolted to the pavement. Her own pulse pounded in her ears. And then, "Stand still!" The voice shattered the air. It sliced through her like a blade. It hit her chest like a hammer. Karen gasped. It was a command, not a request, not a suggestion. A command. A shiver crawled up her spine. Primal fear. The kind that makes animals freeze before a predator. But she wasn't an animal. She wasn't the kind of person who took orders. Her body moved before her mind could catch up. She spun around and ran. The crowd screamed. She tore through the people, shoving them aside. She didn't know where she was going. She didn't know why. She only knew one thing. She had to run. But from what? She didn't know yet. But soon, she would. Very soon. Because this was only the beginning. The crowd parted. People stepped aside like water before a coming storm, clearing a path for her. But this wasn't an act of support. It wasn't sympathy. It was self-preservation. They no longer saw her as a bold tourist, no longer viewed her as part of some spectacle. They understood. She was the enemy now. Karen felt it. The stares, the distance. People had stopped recording. Some even put their phones away. Others averted their eyes, too afraid to be caught standing too close to her. But none of that mattered. She had to run. She lunged forward, fast and sharp, as if she could simply vanish among the tourists, melt into the crowd, slip into the city's noise, disappear into the streets of London, change clothes, get away. But the moment her heels clicked against the pavement, London stood still. Something in the air shifted. The murmur of the crowd vanished. The noise of the streets disappeared. Even the distant hum of traffic seemed to cut out, as if someone had just muted the entire city. Karen froze. Her breath was ragged. She didn't understand what was happening. And then, she saw it. Her own face, everywhere, on massive billboards, on digital screens in store windows, on subway monitors, even on the phones of random strangers who pulled them out, staring in disbelief. Karen Bennett, national criminal. The words burned across every screen, like a brand. Karen stood frozen. Her brain refused to process it. What? Was this some kind of prank? Was this even possible? Who could... How? How was this even happening? The crowd backed away further. Now. They weren't just afraid of her. They were avoiding her. People turned their backs, stepped away, as if standing near her meant sharing her fate. Karen turned left. People hurried away, eyes cast down. She turned right. A woman yanked her child's hand and pulled them away. No one wanted to be near her. This wasn't a game anymore. This wasn't hype. This wasn't entertainment. "What the hell? What's happening?" Her voice was loud, unsteady, almost hysterical. The guards moved without a word. Precise, coordinated. They closed in. Karen spun around. There was no way out, no exit, no escape. And then, one of the guards stepped forward, slowly, deliberately, and then he reached up, removed his helmet. Karen blinked. What? Royal guards never remove their helmets in public. It's forbidden. It's part of their code. But as her gaze lifted, as the helmet lowered, and the face beneath it was revealed, Karen forgot how to breathe. Standing before her was the King of the United Kingdom. Her eyes widened in horror. Something inside her collapsed, like the ground had just disappeared beneath her feet. Now, she understood, and it was so much worse than she ever could have imagined. Karen couldn't look away. Her breath was shaky, her thoughts a jumbled mess. A deep, sticky dread coiled in her chest. This wasn't real. Her mind scrambled for explanations. A prank? A scam? A hidden camera show? But he was standing right there. No helmet. No unreadable mask. His face was on every British banknote, in every history book, on every news broadcast. His face was known to the entire world. The king. And he wasn't speaking. He just watched her. Karen felt a cold shiver race down her spine. It wasn't a look of anger, not a look of humiliation. It was a look of power. The kind of power that didn't need words. A man who could change her entire life with a single movement. The crowd held its breath. No one dared speak. No one moved. "You thought you could break us?" His voice was calm, not loud, but it cut through the air like a blade. Karen's throat was dry. She swallowed, her heart pounding too fast. This wasn't the fear she was used to. This was something else. She took a slow step back and hit a wall. Guards. They were right behind her. Silent, unmoving, like stone barriers. She was trapped. The king? What the hell? Why are you here? Her voice shook. She knew it, and she hated that she knew it. This wasn't the plan. This wasn't how this was supposed to go. He was supposed to be in his palace, at a long table, surrounded by politicians and world leaders. Not here. Not in front of her. He didn't answer immediately. He just smiled, and it was terrifying. No anger, no mockery, no joy, just understanding. You wanted to bring a guard to his knees. Now you will learn what it means to kneel. His words whipped through the air. Karen couldn't breathe. Kneel? She never knelt. She commanded. She broke people, turned them into her servants, her victims, her toys. But not today. Panic surged inside her. She bolted. She ran. Run! Run! Her heels clattered against the pavement. Her heart pounded. She didn't know where she was going. She didn't care. She just had to get out. But the exit was blocked. Guards were already standing there. They had moved faster than she could think, like shadows closing in. She spun to the other side. Another dead end. No escape. She turned back to the king. His eyes hadn't changed, still calm, still certain, like a man who had already decided. The palace doors swung open, slowly, grandly, like the gates to another reality. Karen felt pure terror. No, you can't. This is a joke. This is just a joke. Her voice wavered. She tried to smile, tried to act like herself, but no one was laughing. The king tilted his head toward the palace. Come, you are part of the game now. Karen froze. She had lost. The crowd didn't move. Someone glanced from her to the open palace doors, and Karen felt fear sink its claws into her heart. In that moment, she understood. Her life would never be the same again.